I don't think Keef like Dirk. There's no way.
You don't think so?
No. Same day Dirk went to jail, that had a $500,000. Yeah, I don't think Keef like Dirk. They got one song together. Y'all the two biggest young niggas out of Chicago, and you got one song together, but y'all like each other? Keef don't like that, bro. You know, Von and them stole all his back in the day. Boss Top and all them, they broke in there and stole his jewelry. They robbed him. Like when Von died, did he post him? He out here fucking the shit out of his sister. Come on now. Make it make sense. Like, what the And this is gonna break it down too. OTF Chucky and OTF DJ Bands got kicked out of Chief Keef's show in Atlanta a couple days ago. That don't fuck with them, man. But what I'm saying is, man, you sit down with Keef, man, and you ask that man about Dirk, man, you ain't gonna hear that man say free him. That man don't give a fuck about.
When studio footage surfaced of Chief Keef locked in with NBA Youngboy, Chicago didn't just react, it divided. Because this wasn't some random collaboration between two artists who happened to be in the same city. This was Sosa, the godfather of drill, the face of O-Block, standing next to one of the most polarizing figures in Chicago's current beef landscape. Smiling, recording, comfortable, and the city read it immediately. But here's what most people got wrong when the footage dropped. They called it betrayal. They said Keef turned his back on his block. They acted like this studio session was the moment everything fell apart. It wasn't. This was just the moment Chicago finally had to stop pretending everything was fine. Because the real split between Chief Keef and O-Block didn't happen in 2024. It happened across a decade of moments. A phone call that never came, a robbery that crossed every line, a death that changed everything, and a silence so loud the entire city heard it. The Youngboy footage didn't start the war. It confirmed it. To understand how Keef got here, you have to go back to Parkway Gardens. O-Block wasn't just an address on Chicago's South Side. It was an identity. Growing up there meant loyalty wasn't a concept. It was a survival requirement. The same hallways, the same enemies, the same code. Keef grew up around names that would later define drill music: King Von, Boss Top, Trey 5. These weren't industry connections. These were the guys who knew him before the cameras, before the deal, before I Don't Like changed his life overnight in 2012. When Interscope came calling and Keef left for Los Angeles, it made sense from a business and safety standpoint. Chicago was dangerous. Police attention was heavy. The city was watching his every move. But in O-Block culture, there's an expectation that comes with making it out. You bring the block with you, you feed your day ones, you make sure nobody gets left behind. Keef brought his blood family, built Glow Gang, focused forward. To some, that was smart. To others, it looked like abandonment. And in neighborhoods where loyalty defines identity, even a perceived slight can quietly grow into something irreversible. It started simmering, but it hadn't broken yet. That would take one unanswered phone call. At some point after Keef relocated to LA, Trey 5, a respected O-Block member, got locked up and needed bond money. The number was around $25,000. The block scraped together about $18,000. Close, but not enough, so they reached out to Sosa. From their perspective, this wasn't charity. This was loyalty being called in. He had just signed a major deal. He was posting chains, ATVs, and studio sessions online. And this wasn't for a stranger. This was for someone who allegedly held it down for the block when things were active. They needed $7,000. Word is, Keef agreed. No hesitation. Then silence. Calls went unanswered. Messages sat on read. The $7,000 never came. Meanwhile, the lifestyle post kept going. Expensive purchases, new jewelry, more upgrades. To the block, that wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a message, and it wasn't really about the $7,000 anymore. It was about what it meant. They felt like Keef was comfortable being the face of O-Block when it was building him, but unwilling to carry the weight when it came with real consequences. Resentment doesn't disappear when it's not addressed. It waits. What happened next crossed every line. Not long after the bond money situation, reports circulated that members connected to O-Block allegedly broke into a property tied to Chief Keef while he was away from Chicago. These weren't strangers. These were people who knew exactly how he moved, what he had, and where things were kept. Jewelry was taken, designer items, personal belongings, and one of Keef's chains was reportedly snatched. In street culture, that isn't just theft. That's a statement. That's humiliation delivered in the most personal way possible. And what made it heavier was a rumor that someone was injured during the situation. Details that stayed murky because nobody cooperated with police. Street code held even in betrayal. From O-Block's perspective, they were taking what he owed. if he wouldn't help free their homie themselves. From Keef's perspective, there was nothing left to interpret. His own day ones had allegedly run in his spot. After that, something shifted permanently. There was no dramatic confrontation, no public fallout, no interviews, just distance. Keef stopped mentioning O'Block, stopped engaging, poured everything into Glow Gang, and kept building his life in LA. The brotherhood was done, but it wasn't fully personal yet. Then it became family. In April 2014, Blood Money, Chief Keef's cousin, was shot and killed in Chicago. No court ruling ever confirmed what the streets started saying, but rumors moved fast, and some of the speculation circulating online connected his death to the same internal tension that had already fractured things between Keef and certain O-Block figures. No proof, no conviction, just street talk that refused to quiet down. What amplified it were cryptic social media posts around that period, subtle captions, lyrics dropped with specific timing. Nothing that confirmed anything directly. But in Chicago politics, you don't always need confirmation. You need enough. For Keef, losing a blood relative in the middle of all that tension would have been the moment forgiveness became impossible. Whether the rumors were true or not didn't change the emotional reality. Trust was already gone. Now family was gone too. He didn't escalate publicly. He didn't give interviews. He didn't respond. He just kept moving further away. More LA, more Glow Gang, more separation, and the distance stopped being temporary. For years after that, Keef stayed quiet. The city kept moving. O-Block kept building without him. And most people outside Chicago assumed the tension was just old history, something that faded when everyone grew up and got money. Then, November 2020 proved otherwise. When King Von was shot and killed in Atlanta, the entire hip-hop world responded. Artists posted tributes, fans flooded timelines, Chicago mourned publicly and loudly. Chief Keef posted nothing, no RIP, no throwback photo, subtle caption, complete silence. And that silence landed harder than anything he could have said. Because Von wasn't just another Chicago rapper. He was from Parkway Gardens. He grew up in O-Block. There are old videos of them together as teenagers. Two kids from the same hallways, long before either of them had a deal or a following. In Chicago, drill culture, even rivals acknowledge when someone falls. The fact that Keef said nothing told the city everything it had been wondering for years. Whatever bond once existed between him and O-Block was already buried. He wasn't grieving publicly because he had already grieved that relationship privately. Years before Von ever left, the city finally understood. Keef wasn't distant. He was gone, so when the studio footage dropped in 2024, it wasn't a surprise to anyone paying attention. Keef and Youngboy, locked in, recording, multiple sessions. And Youngboy isn't a neutral figure in Chicago. He's been in a long, layered conflict with Lil Durk and people connected to the current O-Block structure. Diss tracks, real tension, ongoing beef that goes beyond music. So when Keef stood in that room, visibly comfortable, it wasn't ambiguous. He wasn't staying neutral anymore. He was making a choice visible. O-Block affiliates reacted fast. Cryptic posts, public distance, unfollows. The message was direct. If you're standing with Youngboy, you're not standing with us. But here's what made it different from past drama. Keef didn't respond, didn't clarify, didn't explain. Glow Gang moved with dismissive confidence. Laughing emojis, subtle flexes, zero engagement with the backlash. Because Keef wasn't looking for a conversation. He had already made peace with where things stood. This wasn't a rapper making a business decision and accidentally stepping on toes. This was a man who had spent a decade processing betrayal, loss, and distance, and finally stopped pretending any of it was repairable. So the real question isn't whether Chief Keef betrayed O-Block, it's whether that bond was ever going to survive what happened to it. The $7,000 that never came, the robbery that crossed every line, the death of family, the silence that grew into years. By the time anyone outside Chicago was watching, the relationship was already a decade into collapse. The Youngboy studio session didn't break anything. It just made the break impossible to ignore. Keef built O-Block's sound. O-Block shaped his identity, but money, mistrust, and loss cracked that foundation beyond repair. And Keef made a decision that most people from that environment don't get the chance to make. He chose distance over danger. Whether Chicago calls that betrayal or survival depends entirely on which side of those hallways you grew up on. Either way, the godfather of drill didn't just leave Chicago physically, he left it completely. And in a culture where loyalty defines legacy, that's the kind of move that never stops being debated.